Alrighty, so news of the week episode on this Saturday evening, and once again we have some transfer rumors, some signings that has happened in these past couple of days. But most importantly, we have another head coach that is being hired by an MLS team, and this time it comes from CF Montreal as they have officially named their new head coach, and they named former Columbus Crew assistant head coach Laurent Courtois as their new head coach of the team. Now, obviously, it's pretty clear what Montreal is trying to do here. Montreal clearly trying to decide it that well after Wilfred Nancy basically left what built Montreal to be a successful team before basically decided to leave because of the ongoing bickering between him and the Montreal ownership, and instantly got Columbus not only to believe in the system but also got them to win an MLS Cup. That, for Montreal, they're pretty much what they need to do is, well, why not just decided to get one of his assistant and maybe bring back that Wilford Nancy ball kind of philosophy back to Montreal. So that is exactly what they decided to do with Laurent Courtois. And again, we'll see how it's going to work out. I haven't really heard a lot of experience in terms of the head coaching role that Laurent Courtois has had. So anytime when you decided to go with a head coach that is relatively inexperienced, I mean, it can go either way. And especially, we have seen before where MLS team decided to hire assistant head coach that is part of a head coach that has done really, really well. It can also go both ways. I mean, it could be very successful, like what we saw with Pat Nolan when he decided to leave the Union and go to FC Cincinnati, and it turns out to be an instant success. But it can also go terribly, as what we saw with the Chicago Fire when they decided to hire Ezra Henriksen, and Ezra Henriksen for a long time has been potentially linked with an MLS job, and finally got that chances, knowing that he was one of the understudy of the Brian Schmetzer tree in the coaching role. And yeah, it did not go so well doing his time with the Chicago Fire. So we'll see whether or not if this, of course, would work out for Montreal, and especially if Laurent Courtois is going to bring that Nancy ball that Wilfred Nancy first introduced in Montreal. Don't be surprised. Montreal could be a good team heading into this upcoming season. But that, of course, if they have the pieces to do so. But moving on. So Minnesota. So they have announced that they have decided to let Sean McCauley, their current interim head coach, depart and instead replace with the second in team that Minnesota United has had that currently play in MLS Next Pro, that is UFC 2, and that, of course, is Cameron Nolas as the new interim head coach. Now, obviously, there's been a lot of panic in the Loons fan base, and I can fully understand why that is the case, because coming into this season, we thought that Sean McCauley was going to take in an interim basis, and although I have said before that, I can understand that there are some frustration in the Loons fan base with the way that, it feels like there's not really some sort of urgency that is shown. I also said that, I don't mind the fact that they decided to take their time in terms of getting the right head coach, because if you rush and get the wrong head coach to coach a team, then things could unravel relatively quick. But what I did not expect is the fact that recently with the new sporting director just arrived with this team, and that literally 1 week after he arrived with this team, and this, of course, is the first move that he made. Yeah, this is definitely a little bit dicey, and I will say that, if this is how they decided to move on, it feels like maybe they are really now looking into trying to get a head coach. I mean, obviously, I know Cameron Nolas is currently the interim head coach, but there's no guarantee that he might be the new head. The interim head coach even heading into the season for Minnesota, and there's still some really good candidate out there that I would say that Minnesota could easily get. I mean, they could also get the likes of Hugo Perez, Giovanni Savarese, or even Dome Turan, a guy that it's been linked to that Minnesota job for a while now. So again, this is definitely not a good situation that the Loons have find themselves in. And again, to just kind of show you how much a panic that is going on with the Loons fan base, the supporter group, the Wonderwall, has even issued a statement of their concern with this front office and the moves that they have made. That has definitely not seems like a situation to get them back to where they were, and in many ways it feels like it's getting worse than what we saw with last season when they miss out on the playoffs. And this is also why, this goes back to last season where when they decided to fire Adrian Heath and also fire the some part of the front office and maybe kind of go in a clean house. The timing, of course, is kind of a bit problematic considering that once you do decided to get a new head coach and especially get a new sporting director, which they eventually did announce that is the case. It seems like it's already going to be happening in the middle of the off season, and that the reason why Minnesota has not really been doing a lot of business in terms of the free agent market is that they don't even have their GM in place, and by the time they have their GM in place, all the big target in the free agency market has already been taking off. And that, of course, include one name of the free agency market, and I can't believe this was actually on the free agency market, is Maxime Crepeau. So there was question that with LAFC decided to get Hugo Lloris, there was a big question of what exactly is the future of Maxime Crepeau. Well, it turns out he is going to be the new goalkeeper for the Portland Timbers, as it was announced that well, actually it's not official yet, but there has been numerous sources saying that they're finalizing the deal to sign Maxime Crepeau off of free agency, and this is just after when they officially announced that they have signed James Pentemis off of free agency, and also signing Trey Musa from Charleston Battery. And this is a guy that he did very well last season with Charleston Battery, and was kind of one of the main reasons why they got all the way to the final of that tournament. But yeah, the Timbers, they definitely are reshaping their goalkeeping uh, depth chart, and they had to be. I mean, after what we saw last season, it's pretty clear that they need to go through a clean slate in terms of the goalkeeping depth chart, and that yeah, I mean was expecting maybe there was going to be a battle between James Pantemis and Trey Musa for that number one spot. I did not expect Maxime Crepeau to basically join the Portland Timbers. I mean, I was thinking that maybe Maxime Crepeau was gonna join one of these MLS team, but I didn't think the Timbers was gonna win the race. So yeah, definitely great news if you're a Timbers fan getting a goalkeeper that Maxime Crepeau. He's been an incredible goalkeeper. He's been considered to be top 10 and maybe even top 5 in terms of the best goalkeeper in the league, and I think the Timbers have finally found a perfect replacement for Steve Clark that they clearly miss after they decided to let him go just a couple of years ago. Now, speaking of letting players go from the Portland Timbers, they decided to let go of Frank Boley and sold him to Liga MX Club Atlético de San Luis. And as I mentioned in the last episode, it feels like the Brazilian Serie A and MLS seems to have a partnership this offseason because there's been a lot of ongoing and incoming transfer from both of these leagues. Well, you can say the same thing about Liga MX, though we kind of knew that that was the case. MLS and Liga MX always have this partnership, especially with the creation of the Leeds Cup. But yeah, for Frank Boley, it's kind of a shame because he really started well doing his time with the Portland Timbers. In fact, at times he was literally the only goal scored for this team in the beginning of the season when the Timbers were really struggling to score goals. But eventually, he did cool off, and he was pretty much a non-factor as the season goes along. So yeah, they decided to kind of move on uh, from him and at least get salvaged some sort of money out of this deal. Now, NYCFC, they have announced that they have traded Alfredo Morales to the San Jose Earthquakes in exchange for a third round pick. I did not realize that Alfredo Morales is already in his 30s. I thought that he was one of those young player that is could have a lot of potential playing for NYCFC, but nope. It seems like they decided to move on from him, and there's no doubt that I think this is more for a depth signing for the Quakes rather than a guy that could get regular minutes in that midfield, and especially with the Quakes. I don't think they re-signed Jutson this offseason. No, I think Jutson has departed to this team now that I remember from a couple of weeks ago. They clearly need depth in terms of that position, and Alfredo Morales is not a bad piece to do. I mean, he's definitely not as good as what we saw a couple of years for NYCFC, and is kind of near the twilight of his career. But the fact that they only have to give up a third round super draft pick, I mean, you might as well just say that he kind of got picked up off a free agency with the little return that NYCFC got out of this deal. But nevertheless, I think it's a good deal for NYCFC getting rid of a bit of a contract, because I think Morales does occupy by a little bit of a chunk of the salary cap that NYCFC had, and the Quakes, of course, getting a player pretty much for for nothing. I mean, when you get a player, it's pretty much low risk, high reward kind of situation. Even if Morales doesn't work out, they don't really give up too much out of the trade that they of course made to NYCFC. Now, speaking of the Quakes, they also picked up William Yarbrough off of free agency. Now, here's an interesting story I want to tell you. Back in 2018, when I was still the season ticket holder for the Quakes, and that I think I've attended one of these season ticket event where we did a Q&A with the then sporting director and the GM for the Quakes, that is Jesse Forinelli, and I even asked him about the whole William Yarbrough rumor, because there was a rumor back then that William Yarbrough was going to be coming to MLS and he was going to join the San Jose Earthquakes from Leon. But Jesse Forinelli quickly shot down that rumor. He says that that rumor is not true. Turns out that that is actually the truth, as he never arrived to the Quakes in 2018. In fact, he joined the Colorado Rapids and become a decent goalkeeper for the Rapids. Though these last couple of years, you can clearly see he has definitely fall down the pecking order in terms of the goalkeeping position, and really have not. It started to become a little bit washed, as what we saw in the last year or so. So it's kind of weird the fact that 6 years later, after it seems like the Quakes were gonna pick up William Yarbrough, they actually got William Yarbrough now. Though again, I would love to see that the Quakes picked him up back in 2018. I mean, this is clearly a signing for the Quakes to not really replace JT Marcinkowski, because I've heard JT Marcinkowski, he's still recovering from surgery from that torn ACL that he suffered near the end of the season, and it's going to be a lengthy delay before he comes back. And knowing Danielle is the only starting goalkeeper of this team, I mean, they still have Ima Ochoa as the other goalkeeper in the Quakes goalkeeping chart, but I don't think Ima Ochoa is ready yet. I think he still needs to get some more minutes with the Quakes to MLS Next Pro team. So why not bring in a backup goalkeeper that has experience and still could be decent in the backup level in William Yarbrough. So yeah, good signing for the Quakes in terms of this move. But moving on, so the LA Galaxy, they have signed Japanese international defender Miki Yamane from Kawasaki Frontale, because why not? Why not for another LA team decided to sign a Japanese player? I mean, not that they already have two big Japanese stars that play for the Dodgers, and as a Giants fan, I am definitely not salty whatsoever seeing both Shohei Ohtani and Yamamoto went to the LA Dodgers. But all kidding aside, and back to a more serious note, for the Galaxy, I think this is a good signing, considering they already have a Japanese defender in Yoshida there, and that I think that's gonna bring some chemistry to this Galaxy backline. That this is a team that I've said for the past couple of years they have had a lot of problem in terms of their backline. They try everything to try to fix it, but it feels like it just never able to get it to even close to being MLS average level. But the hope that this signing could maybe be a case to solidify that back line. Though he's more of a fullback, so you could say that he could be a guy that with fullbacks. I don't know if he's kind of one of those fullbacks that likes to bomb for up front. Which, if that's the case, this is the Raheem Edwards replacement, because when Raheem Edwards played in that fullback position for the Galaxy, he loved to bomb for it, and this is why he looked really dynamic near the end of the season on the attack. But when you have fullbacks that bomb for it, one of the issue is that when you have a more attacking minded fullback, yeah, you're gonna have some defensive liability, and that's kind of the downfall of Raheem Edwards, where he could be a defensive liability because of how much he loved to bomb for it on the attack for the Galaxy, and that's why they decided to not re-sign him. Now, the San Jose Earthquakes, they have also signed Tommy Thompson to a new contract extension, because it's not a year for the San Jose Earthquakes this offseason without seeing Tommy Thompson getting another contract extension. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's still a fan favorite to this day, and he's actually now the longest serving player on this Quakes team. I mean, it's hard to believe that this is a kid that was the first homegrown player for the Quakes, and despite the fact that there were numerous times that I thought that the Quakes were going to let him go, especially this offseason, they decided to sign him back, because he's going to be a guy that I think is to this point, I think he's just going to be a one man club, and that even though I know Tommy Thompson is not considered to be one of the greatest player to ever play for the San Jose Earthquakes, he's definitely going to earn legendary status because of how long he's been with the club, and especially being a fan favorite for that long, I wouldn't mind seeing him decided to stick around for the Quakes, especially with the way that his career has been really interesting with the way that in the beginning of the season there was a lot of hypes that he can be a great player, maybe even be in the in 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 terms of getting a discussion of being on the national team. That obviously didn't happen. He didn't really reach that potential, and then there was a couple of seasons where they put him in different positions to see what exactly his best position is. They even put him as a fullback, as I've seen for the past couple of years, and it feels like maybe that's kind of the position that he's gonna go. I mean, it's crazy of the evolution of Tommy Thompson with the Quakes. I can even do a single video talking about it, especially when I eventually, if he does decide to retire, there's no doubt I'm gonna do a career video of Tommy Thompson, and I would definitely had a good time explaining all the crazy things about Tommy Thompson being a San Jose Earthquakes player and all the evolution that he's been going through in terms of the position and just in general life as a San Jose Earthquakes player. Now, Atlanta United is reported that they're going to sign Dax McCarty off of free agency. So Dax McCarty is another interesting name that there's going to be definitely a lot of teams that is looking to try to get him. I mean, I know Dax McCarty. I would say that Father Time is definitely knocking on his door, but he's still a very serviceable midfield and also a guy that is a very good leader in the locker room, and that Atlanta United saw that and they say, yeah, why not? Why not decide to sign him off of free agency? Like, I also thought that maybe the New York Red Bulls would do so, considering the fact that Dax McCarty has spent so many years with the New York Red Bulls, and this would be a perfect reunion for him to go to the Red Bulls. I mean, it could still happen if Atlanta United decided to not re-sign him for the next year or so. But that being said, again, I think this is good locker room presence and also a good depth pieces in the midfield, especially with the way that they lost Ozzy Alonso this off season. I think Ozzy Alonso might have also just announced his retirement, and it's sad the fact that with how great of his career is in MLS, and no doubt going down as one of the best midfielder and one of the best defensive midfielder of all time in MLS. That he kind of end his career on a down note after suffering multiple ACL injury, but bring in another guy that is a great locker room presence and also a guy that could go down as one of the best midfielder of all time in Dax McCarty. I think this is a good move for Atlanta United too. And the same goes for FC Cincinnati as they decided to about to sign Corey Bear off a free agency. Last year, Corey Bear probably had his best season with the Houston Dynamo, and I also don't get why some people say that he kind of had an inconsistent year. Yes, at times he was kind of hot and cold in terms of the goal scoring production. But there's no doubt that last year that was probably his most lethal goal scoring campaign that he has probably since when he break into the scene and becoming the rookie the year when he came into the scene with RSL. But nevertheless, for Cincinnati, I think this is a good signing in a way that Corey Bear is going to be a guy that will produce the goal, and especially the issue with Cincinnati in the attack is that if they don't have Bupenza there, and also we'll just say that they're probably not going to have Brandon Vasquez anymore. Especially there's been a lot of reports saying that Brandon Vasquez is going to move on to Liga MX and join Rayados. They don't really have a lot of good option in terms of that number 9 position. I mean, after Bupenza, it's pretty much Dom Baji. And don't get me wrong, Dom Baji had a decent season last year, but he's definitely not as good as the replacement that they're going to get with Corey Bear in terms of that spot. And that, yeah, again, I think this is a good signing considering they need some depth in the attack too, and that this is exactly the depth piece that they get, especially after Corey Bear had a career season with the Houston Dynamo. Now, Chivas is report to link with the Earthquakes attacker K Cal. So K Cal, for a long time, I mentioned how this is unfortunately one of those kids that it seems like in the beginning he had a lot of potential to do some good thing, but as it is the case with the San Jose Earthquakes, every time they try to develop a young kid and trying to reach their potential, most time they are unable to do so. And I think it's safe to say that K Cal have unfortunately hit that level once again, where he just really never lived up to his potential. And this is also why I feel like last year they could have easily just sold him to Bologna after Bologna decided to submit an offer. But that being said, if he's gonna go to Chivas, that would be kind of historic too, because Chivas is a team that is known for their policy of signing Mexican only player. Although they kind of have relaxed that policy lately, and that KCal does have some Mexican heritage, so I guess that counts in terms of him eligible to play for Chivas. But still, I think it is kind of time for the Quakes to move on from KCal. I don't think you can get anything better than what we seen him done when he was with the national team, and that it's just best that they of course make this move. Maybe you can get a sell on fee out of that, because if he goes to Chivas and he turns out to do well, then not only he's going to sold off to Europe, but the Quakes at least will get some sell on fee out of that. Speaking of the Quakes, this must be a record number of the amount of topics I talk about the San Jose Earthquakes, because I think what, one, two, three, four, five. Yeah, there was five news topics that I talk about the San Jose Earthquakes. And the reason why I say it's a record number is that usually the Quakes are not known to make some news in a short amount of period. But they have made news once again as they report to make an offer for Torino attacking midfielder Nemanja Rendoja. I think that's how you pronounce. But yeah, this is kind of an interesting move. I mean, I don't know too much about this player. Some people said that he's decent. Some people say it is not. And that kind of concerns me, because, if they're going to make him a DP player, which I can see that could be the case. I've seen before where when the Quakes decided to take some risk to try and sign a player in Europe and made him a designated player, and they just didn't live up to its potential. In fact, more times or not, that of course is the case. So yeah, we'll see whether the rumor is true, and we'll see whether or not if he can do well. I mean, I don't expect him to be considered to be one of the best attacking midfielder in the league. I feel like this is kind of one of those hope that this is the diamond in the rough for the Quakes that I've seen before of how this front office approach thing. But I just also want to see him be a better option than what Jamir Montero was for the Quakes, because Jamir Montero, he's the guy that is supposed to be kind of the number 10 guy for this team, but again, he's not really a number 10. He's more of a deep line playmaker, and even then he had a really down season last year. So yeah, that's kind of one of the reason why they need an attacking midfielder. I mean, even I mentioned it in the moving forward series that they need an attacking midfielder, and yeah, looks like they might potentially have found one. And again, we'll see how he's going to do. I mean, if they're gonna give him DP money, he's got to perform, or else if he's gonna join the long list of designated player that turns out to be a huge bust for the Quakes. And there's a long list of that I'm not even gonna talk about, because I can spend like at least 5 or 10 minutes talking about the list of failed designated player that the Quakes has ever had. Now, moving on in terms of next news, and now moving away from talk about transfer rumors. And no, there's not going to be another San Jose Earthquakes rumor that I'm gonna talk about. But instead, the next news I'm talking about is a big news. So, Pro, the organization that has all the referees, and probably one of the most hated organization by fans, and maybe even the most hated organization besides MLS itself and Don Gabbard. They are going to potentially walk out of their job, and basically they're saying that they're not gonna referee some of these games and can face work stoppage, because there seems to be problem with the CBA negotiation that Pro and MLS is trying to agree, and a lot of that has to do with the pay that these referee are getting. And I know Pro is definitely not done a good job in terms of producing the referee, and especially we've just seen so many controversial call that I've spent many times for the past couple of years, ever since I started talking about MLS, of what Pro need to do to basically reform, but it seems like nothing has changed. But what I will say, that on one of the rare thing that I do agree with Pro, it's got to be the base pay, and especially it's how criminal the fact that some of these referees are only making in each of these games, and especially assistant referee too, making in each games. And it feels like some of these referees just had enough of it, and I don't blame them, because we've seen this before, especially with jobs that it is unionized, that that they're gonna be fed up if they're not getting enough pay out of that, and this is just another bad look in terms of MLS. I mean, MLS has been taking a lot of L's this off season, and especially after a very underwhelming kind of approach of some of the changes that they're going to make heading into the season. Now they have a situation where we could potentially be seeing replacement referees in MLS. And for those of you thinking that, well, replacement referee isn't going to be bad, right? Because while Pro has some bad referees, surely replacement referee will be better, right? No. I mean, did you watch the NFL, and did you watch how I think back in I think was it 2013 when they had the replacement referee and how bad those games were refereeing, and then eventually, I remember the game between the Seahawks and the Packers, and how that was the game at the end that was known as the fail Mary, where the referees said it was a touchdown for the Seahawks, even though it was pretty clear that a Packers defender intercepted the ball, and that controversy really left the black eye in terms of the NFL to a point where eventually the referee decided to agree to come back to work, and I fear that this is going to be the same case we're going to see in MLS too, and that again, replacement referee. These replacement referee are probably going to be fighting in the lower level, like in the USL Championship, or even as low as the NPSL and the UPSL. And as a guy that have watched these kind of lower league soccer, and I've done a lot of sports hop series of watching these lower league soccer. Let me tell you, refereeing in these lower leagues are pretty bad. Like I don't mention it too many times because I don't want to just spend and most of these sports hop series criticizing the referees, but I have seen some really bad refereeing decision that so some of these games that I've seen in the lower league refereeing are just so much worse than what we see in the professional level, and it makes sense because these referee are not supposed to be. I mean, they are trained to be referee, but they're definitely not going to be trained to the level as what we see in terms of MLS standards. So imagine if you see these kind of referee now are acting as replacement referee for these MLS games. Oh boy, I can't tell you that every single review that I'm going to do starting this upcoming season, I'll talk about referee controversy, and it's just gonna like I already done long reviews in terms of some of these games. It's going to be now longer because of just numerous of refereeing controversy, and again, it's just going to leave a huge black eye in terms of this league. I mean, it's already a lot. There's a lot of black eye left with this league with all these controversy throughout this off season and the underwhelming change. But this would be just the icing on the cake, and let's just hope eventually they do figure this out. Because if they don't figure this out, oh boy, this could be tough to watch in terms of seeing these replacement referee, especially as I said. I'm pretty sure a lot of you have first experience of seeing replacement referee in the NFL about a decade ago of how bad that of course end up to be. And then FC Dallas have announced that they are going to host Inter Miami in a preseason game at the Cotton Bowl, and it's quite crazy the fact that Inter Miami, in terms of their preseason tour, they're not only going to be touring around three different continent, but they're going to do it in a short amount of period. I mean, it's insane the fact that they're going to play like 7 games in 20 days, and there's no doubt that Messi is going to play pretty much every single game. I mean, there's no reason to have these preseason game if Messi doesn't play in it, and this is where it could become a problem for Inter Miami in this upcoming season, because in the preseason it's all about, of course, getting the players ready to go. But at the same time, you don't want to burn out Lionel Messi, especially during the stretch run. And this is also where I've said about when Messi come to Inter Miami, it's kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time. It's a blessing because it has give a lot of attention to Inter Miami, and that Inter Miami is easily the most recognized full club right now in MLS. I mean, you can literally go to random places, and I have seen people wearing Messi Inter Miami jersey. That's how big that they have got in uh, the the world of football right now. But it's a curse now because now it seems like with them playing these meaningless tournament that you're basically forced to play Messi in because of how you market getting in. There's no way that they're not going to play Messi in all of these games. That's going to really upset a lot of the consumer that of course goes to these games. But also, these are just meaningless games. These games means absolutely nothing, and that if you play Messi in all these games, even if you don't play him like the full 90 minutes for all these games, you could burn him out before the season is over. And this is a long season, as we've seen in MLS. All these teams, if they're in competition, especially with Inter Miami being in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, they could be playing 50 plus games if you include preseason. And there is no way Lionel Messi can play 50 plus game, especially starting 50 plus game with the age that he has. I mean, I know he still has a lot of quality, but for a guy that is near the end of his career, no way in hell he's going to be playing 50 plus game and not suffering injury problems. So again, this is where it could be a problem for Inter Miami, and this is also why I think if you look at the preseason odds of who wins MLS Cup, I'm really surprised seeing Inter Miami name being at the top, or even at least close to the top, because yes, when you look on this Inter Miami team, it's a very talented team, but I still think there's a lot of flaws on this team, and there is no doubt that while Messi has done some good things with Inter Miami, especially carried this team to win Leeds Cup, I don't know if he can do that throughout the entire season, especially if he does get injured again. If he gets injured again, this could be a problem for this Inter Miami team, because we saw last season when they did not have Messi, and especially with some of his companion with the team, Inter Miami basically falter back to where they were in the beginning of the season, being just a team that just keep getting found out, especially on the defensive end. And the other thing I would like to say is that it's kind of weird that they decided to host the game on a Monday, and it's a 5 o'clock kickoff. I mean, why the heck did they schedule a game on a Monday day, and it's a 5 o'clock kickoff? Unless I think that Monday is actually MLK Day. Now that I think about it, I think that day is MLK Day, so that's why maybe they scheduled that at 5 o'clock, because it would make no sense if that's not a public holiday to schedule a game starting at 5 o'clock, and it's a Monday, no matter if Messi is playing or not in that game. And then lastly, we have seen the U.S. men's national team named the January camp, and all the players from the January camp are MLS players, which is not surprised, because usually in January camp it's pretty much all MLS player, knowing a lot of these players that's currently playing Europe are not going to be joining the January camp, because some of these teams are not going to let their player join their January camp, and that has been the case. We have heard that there are certain players that was supposed to join the January U.S. men's national team camp that's not playing MLS, but their European club just decided not to allow them to release them to join this January camp. But nevertheless, let me go over in terms of the names here. We got Drake Callender, Roman Salatano, Patrick Schulte, Nathan Hariel, Dewan Jones, Shaq Moore, Ian Murphy, Jackson Reagan, Miles Robinson, James Sands, Kosi Tafari, John Token, Caleb Wiley, Josh Atencio, Ezel Jackson, Jack McGlynn, Aidan Morris, Timothy Tillman, Sean Zawadzki, Ismail Bejeterit, K. Cal, Bernard Kamungo, Diego Luna, Duncan McGuire, and Brian White as the 25 players that I have named that are going to be part of the January camp, and all of them will be participating in that friendly against Slovenia in the middle of January. And I know usually with these January camp, there's a reason why it's called Cupcake Camp, because it's pretty much a camp for all these players to potentially fulfill their dreams of being on the national team. And a bunch of these guys are probably not going to be considered to be a regular for the U.S. men's national team. I mean, if anything, some of these players might be lucky to even get into the Gold Cup squad, or even the Copa America squad for this upcoming competition that's going to be happening in the U.S. But we have seen before where players that do well in the January camp, they could get promoted, potentially being on the B or even on the A team. So a lot of these players, they're not just there because they're happy to fulfill their dream of being on the national team. They're there to try to fight for position, and maybe trying to fight their way and convince Greg Berhalter, or maybe even belong on the USB or even A team in the near future. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of looking at this news of the week episode. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these news? And as always, if there's any news I didn't mention here on the board, let me know in the comments as well. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys do like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.